Is there anything so utterly American as revolution? The 50 stars and 13 stripes of Old Glory might not own a monopoly over this bloodletter, but they wouldn't exist without it either. To that, maybe offer a salute and a bit of remembrance. A house divided against itself cannot stand. Don't believe me? Ask the 16th President of these United States. Don't believe him? Find a Bible and open to Mark 3:24 and see those goodly words immortalized in Scripture. Despite having a bone to pick with both God and country, Rapture might want to look to its forebears in the coming days. It is, after all, on the cusp of revolution, and the only surety about revolution is blood. The discovery of Adam affects every aspect of life in Rapture. Since gene tonics and plasmids hit the market, genetic modification has become an unofficial pastime. Instead of apple pie and baseball, Rapture has sports boost and telekinesis. At first blush, it's hard to imagine an unregulated drug that can rewrite our genes gaining so much traction. But as Big Tobacco has shown, accountability only matters if we know there's a problem to be accountable for. Rapture doesn't truck with government, so public health issues are left to the discretion of the private sector, in this case, Fontaine Futuristics. And Fontaine only cares about Fontaine. The dangers of plasmids are kept in the shadows, and Rapture citizens are kept in the dark. As such, it's easy to see the appeal of plasmids, of splicing. Beauty and brilliance are theoretically only an injection away, and you don't have to settle for just one. Why be Adonis when you can also be Einstein? Why be Adonis-Stein when you can also be Zeus? With Adam, you can become the veritable Superman, all while never leaving the comfort of your couch or having to even open a book. Adam's influence doesn't stop there. Some of Rapture's medical practitioners seek to make use of it as well. One in particular, a surgeon named Dr. J.S. Steinman, becomes fascinated with the potential good Adam could mean for modern medicine.
Ryan and Adam. Adam and Ryan. All those years of study, and was I ever truly a surgeon before I met them? How we plinked away with our scalpels and toy morality. Yes, we could lop a boil here and shave down a beak there, but could we really change anything? No, but Adam gives us the means to do it. And Ryan frees us from the phony ethics that held us back. Change your look, change your sex, change your race. It's yours to change, nobody else's.
With Adam, surgeons like Steinman can mold the flesh like clay, changing a person's face, gender, even race, which to some can be a point of contention. Despite Rapture's progressive leanings, some see the ability to change one's race as a means of getting ahead. It seems even in Paradise, bigotry finds a way to rear its ugly head.
Sure, you hear it in Rapture. One of the business types asked me, why don't you splice white? Get ahead. Well, that's some idiocy. I told him, first of all, I am ahead. Second, in Rapture, it's your work that's supposed to matter, not your skin. Too bad for some folks who can't splice in common sense.
Adam even has an effect on the technology of Rapture. For instance, Charles Milton Porter and his colleague Reed Wall use it to create a supercomputer so advanced it would make Alan Turing blush.
Mr. Ryan hired me to build a computer that could keep an entire city running on time. The Rapture Operational Data Interpreter Network. Folks call it the Thinker for short. We've harnessed the power of Adam even in this, allowing the mainframe to process data at the speed of thought. In other words, it thinks for us. Yes. And with the completion of the independent reasoning processor, it may finally think for itself. If Turing could see me now.
Colloquially referred to as the Thinker, its full title is actually the Rapture Operational Data Interpreter Network, or Rodin. Its namesake is inspired by Auguste Rodin, the French sculptor who created the real-life version of the Thinker. With Adam powering it, the supercomputer can process information at the speed of thought, allowing it to automate every business, every door, and every means of transport in the city. Adam essentially becomes the lifeblood of Rapture. It powers its brain, and the people who walk its arteries can't get enough of it. which ends up making Fontaine exceedingly wealthy. Being the wheeler and dealer he is, he decides to diversify his businesses, creating a host of smaller companies. Fontaine sinks his teeth into everything from cosmetics to dining to dental. He even tries his hand at retail, creating Fontaine's department store. However, his most noteworthy venture is something that we'll only allude to later in this video, and the only reason we bring it up is because its foundation originates in the very woman that this episode is actually about, Sophia Lamb. When we last saw the good doctor, she was throwing poker games in an attempt to spread wealth throughout the drop. Her charitable spirit earns her the respect and affection of its residents, despite the fact that she's also a member of the Rapture elite. Early on in her Rapture tenure, Ryan actually viewed her as an asset. His good graces are earned after she gives him an idea for what she calls aversion therapy, a way of instilling fear of the surface world amongst the children of Rapture. Ryan likes the idea so much that he decides to construct an educational theme park around it. He hires an engineer named Carlson Fiddle to design Ryan Amusements, but the two men share very different visions of what it should be.
I was hired to engineer a park the likes of which no man has seen. Now all I do is watch over it like a grizzled sheepdog. My first line of mechanical puppets made the children here coo with wonder. But Ryan thought my vision was immature. Antiquated, he said. This place could have been something magical. But instead, he turned it into a school. No, a cathedral. Dedicated to himself.
Fiddle wants to build a veritable Disneyland beneath the waves. Ryan, on the other hand, intends on using the park to indoctrinate the youth of Rapture. He hires Sander Cohen to design art for the attractions, or more appropriately, I suppose, propaganda. Ryan also enlists Sophia to flesh out the educational aspects of the park. Their efforts result with a handful of exhibits, such as the Memorial Museum, which details the founding of Rapture, and the Hall of the Future, where visitors can catch a glimpse of tomorrow's plasmids today. However, the most noteworthy attraction is the Journey to the Surface, an unabashed piece of propaganda that not only depicts the surface as corrupt, but also espouses the principles of Rapture and the man who founded it. Sophia finds this troubling. To the good doctor, Ryan Amusements is little more than a shrine to Ryan, a shrine to the ego. It was never her intent to create a cathedral to libertarianism. Ryan Amusements is supposed to educate the children on the dangers of the surface world. Having seen the destruction of Hiroshima firsthand, she believes nuclear war is only a matter of time. Yet, in the end, Ryan Amusements turns out to be objectivist propaganda, and it turns her stomach. Adding insult to injury is Ryan Amusements' gift shop owner, Silas Bantam, who finds ways of exploiting the very people Sophia seeks to help.
Used to be, there was no margin in running the gift shop. I couldn't hardly sell off this tourist crap for a penny more than the cost of manufacture. Then I met a straight shooter named Sinclair, and he laid a sweet deal on me. Says he's got some hard luck folks down at Pauper's Drop can whip up this junk at half the cost I used to pay. Yeah, I had to pick a needle or two out of the shipments, but all in all, nobody's the wiser, and I'm all the richer.
As if the drop has been dealt a bad enough hand, Bantam takes advantage of its residents by undercutting them for their labor. The entire Ryan Amusements situation leaves a sour taste in Sophia's mouth, and marks the beginning of her fall from Ryan's good graces. Sophia focuses her attention mainly on the drop. She builds close ties with many of its residents, the most significant being Grace Holloway, a survivor of the Great Depression who emigrates to Rapture from Missouri. Grace abandons the surface in pursuit of something remarkably ordinary, a family and a singing career. That she has to plunge almost 2,100 meters below sea level to find them should indicate that the poor woman wasn't exactly swimming in opportunities. Coming to Rapture is a gamble, one that pays off, but in true monkey's paw fashion, that success comes at a cost. Living conditions, for instance. The squalor of the drop makes the slums in which she grew up look like Greenwich, Connecticut. That Ryan and those in power still offer no aid and continue to profiteer off their misery fuels her art, her voice. This leads Grace to getting hired to sing at the Limbo Room, a jazz club where the forlorn can come and drink their troubles away. Her smoky croon provides the perfect soundtrack to their woes, as Grace's popularity eventually leads to a record deal. It also leads to romance. One day, she meets James, a political activist who ultimately ends up becoming her lover. Grace becomes so enamored with him that she asks him to father her a child, to which he agrees. Sadly, her womb does not. As fate has it, Grace is sterile, and so another finger on that monkey's paw closes. A grief leads her to the doorstep of Sophia Lamb, who extends to Grace her ear and her counsel.
My folks lived in the St. Louis Hooverville in 32, and the drop is worse by a mile. Nobody's supposed to live down here, city pissing on us. Never dry. Ryan doesn't care, and Fontaine's a damn crook. But Dr. Lamb cares. We're still people to her. She's offering free mental counseling on Sundays. When I go, I get the feeling she's got a plan for Rapture. And for me.
Grace is taken aback by Sophia's generosity, who asks nothing of financial recompense in return. Instead, it is Sophia who seems to offer her something. A prospect. One that hints at change for the better. The details, however, remain a mystery to Grace. Nevertheless, the good doctor earns her trust, so she decides to continue attending her therapy sessions. Sophia's heraldry of the common good doesn't stop with her counseling. When not fighting the good fight in the streets, she's fighting the good fight at home, raising her daughter Eleanor to follow in her footsteps.
To my daughter, Eleanor, soon you will be born, and Rapture will be your home. You shall be raised as I was, to advance the common good through social psychiatry. This city's potential is immeasurable, Eleanor, yet our beliefs are unwelcome here. Life will be difficult, but the price of revolution is always dear. If we are patient with her, Rapture will come to us.
Sophia homeschools Eleanor, lecturing her in the fields of psychology and philosophy in an attempt to instill in her an altruistic certitude. However, she keeps her isolated from the other children of Rapture, knowing that they're raised in a philosophy of dog-eat-dog, and doesn't want them to rub off on her. Eleanor, in her naivete, interprets this sentiment very literally.
In ethical psychiatry, we must account for...
Eleanor Lamb speaking. Mum says I'm not to play with the other children because they're being raised on a diet of dog-eat-dog. I wanted to see these dog-eaters, so I waited until Mum was gone and went out to find one. And guess what? The dog-eaters wear human skins. It makes them look just like us.
An overprotective mother, an inquisitive child, and a locked door. These are the ingredients for childhood rebellion. A rebellion which begins the day Eleanor sneaks out to see the fabled dog-eaters herself. Much to her surprise, they aren't dogs at all, but people. One of them proves to be the exact kind of child Sophia tries to shelter her from, which only makes Eleanor all the more curious. Eleanor witnesses a small boy getting bullied by another, but instead of turning away, she steps up to him, giving him a bloody nose. For all of her sweetness, Eleanor isn't some delicate flower. After years of absorbing her mother's Commonwealth philosophy and not having an outlet, she begins to externalize it through righteous aggression. One can imagine Eleanor going home to find an angry mother, only to justify her disobedience by claiming her actions brought the smaller boy some measure of good. It's the kind of argument I can imagine a philosopher who still has her baby teeth trying to make. Yet, despite Eleanor's good intentions, Sophia scolds her, asserting that her behavior is barbaric. Eleanor, still but a child, finds it fun, and continues to sneak out against her mother's wishes. Unsurprisingly, she seeks companionship amongst the pint-sized denizens of Rapture. Quite surprisingly, she actually finds that companion, in the very bully whose nose she reddened. Amir, the would-be dog-eater, and Eleanor become fast friends. He introduces her to some of the other children of Rapture, which Mommy Dearest obviously disapproves of. In order to keep Eleanor from sneaking out, Sophia installs the security system in their home, but she underestimates just how intelligent her daughter is.
Well, Mr. Diary, Mom's got a new security system to stop me from seeing Amir and the other kids. But security's just made of bits and bobs, like you are, and now we're the best of friends. Isn't that right? Anyway, Amir's got a whole book about the surface. It has India and Ireland and everywhere. Yes, all right, Mr. Diary. If you must know, I do think Emia's kind of pretty for a dog eater. Oh no! Retreat!
Eleanor, come back here at once.
Eleanor hacks into her mother's security devices, bypassing them in order to continue seeing her friends. Despite her disobedience, I imagine Sophia must feel some iota of pride, having raised a child of such incredible intellect. If nothing else, she succeeds as a mother in this regard. In spite of a lifetime of sheltered living, Eleanor finds herself smitten by Amir. However, her world expands in more substantial ways than just young love. Up until recently, the entirety of her existence stretched no further than the confines of her apartment. Stepping out into Rapture for the first time must have been overwhelming. To a certain extent, her situation is remarkably similar to Elizabeth's, another girl who was kept imprisoned in her own home. The core of her emotional arc even hinges on a relationship with a father figure. In a universe governed by constants and variables, one can't help but notice the similarities. After all, Eleanor, like Elizabeth, is a lamb. But we're getting ahead of ourselves here. Sophia and Ryan's ideological differences are expressed in some interesting ways. For instance, art. The magnate believes creative endeavors, whether they be painted or sculpted, or written or sung, should all be in service of a message, one which lionizes the strength of the individual. To Ryan, art that does not reflect this ideal isn't really worth pursuing. It is a strangely reductive outlook, one that ignores what all artists strive to explore: emotional truths, and those truths differ from person to person. Despite Ryan's claim that the artist should not fear the censor, he actually does quite a bit of censoring himself. Not explicitly, mind you. Essentially, any work that doesn't further his agenda isn't so much forbidden as it is deprived of venue. Sophia takes umbrage with this, believing art should be allowed to express the unconscious mind, therefore being entirely subjective. This sentiment is shared by many of the sensitive artistes throughout the city, which is why Sophia establishes Dionysus Park, a place where creativity and expression are truly unbound. The park stands in complete opposition to Ryan's ideals for a couple of reasons. For one, none of the artwork on display needs to cater to Ryan's mission statement. Another reason is the park is accessible to the public free of charge, making it a nice foil to Arcadia, which does require payment for entry. Interestingly, Dionysus Park features work not just by amateur artists, but also luminaries such as Sandra Cohen. It seems even those drunk in Ryan's Kool-Aid care little for his outlook on art, which the magnate, of course, finds troubling.
Dionysus Park. Lamb mocks me in the naming of this place. She knows precisely how I feel about this celebration of unconscious art. The artist reflects the world as it ought to be, not as it is damned to be by some spasm of the lower mind. I shall not censor. The park is Lamb's property. However, if the case we are building against her proves true, I will return with a sledgehammer.
Despite Ryan's distaste for Dionysus Park, he decides not to interfere with Sophia's endeavors, for the time being, that is. To the people of the drop, Sophia is the patron saint of eleemosynary. As such, it should come with no surprise that she begins to amass a following. Strangely enough, the genesis of this following lies not in the destitute of the drop, but in the polished lodgings of the city's Masons district. Simon Wales is one half of the architect duo Wales & Wales. He, alongside his brother, designed Rapture, and have been residing in the city's Masons' Quarter since their masterpiece came to life. This area is one of the wealthiest neighborhoods in Rapture, designed by the myriad of architects who live there. Considering the pedigree that comes from designing Paradise, one can imagine business being very good for the Wales brothers. That is, until Paradise gets a leak, then another, and another, and another. Then business, rather ironically, dries up. The brothers Wales take this hard. Daniel grows incredibly bitter, falling into drink and arguing with Simon, who himself is racked with guilt. A godly man on the surface, in another bit of irony, Simon forsake his religion when he moved to Paradise. It's easy to envision him missing his faith more than ever, having no one to confess to, no one to absolve his sins. Perhaps that's why he ends up seeking Sophia Lamb. As a therapist, her sessions are the closest thing Rapture has to a confessional. Simon attends a session with Sophia, and her philosophies resurrect his spiritual side. In time, he gives himself over to her teachings, ultimately becoming her acolyte. Eager to expand her collectivist ideals, Sophia starts by recruiting patients, choosing those who express interest in her teachings, and bestowing them with a butterfly brooch. Wearing it signifies one's willingness to embrace her ideology. One of the many patients Sophia attempts to recruit is Grace.
All right, Doctor. I'm here. But don't think wearing this butterfly means I'm happy.
Grace, I know you all too well. Want of child defines you. But biological loyalty turns us against the rest of the world, whom we ought to love in equal measure. Your poverty is testament to that, but your voice inspires the people. I am asking you to join a much larger family. Though your body failed you, you shall live on in us.
Grace, while reluctant to join, ultimately agrees under the pretense of getting that which she's always yearned for: family. And in an attempt to extend that family, she begins to hand out flyers for Sophia's sessions at the Limbo Room. Grace also injects anti-Ryan messaging into her performances. Meanwhile, Simon, like a 20th century John the Baptist, evangelizes Sophia's beliefs under the new title of Father Wales. He conducts sermons in his neighborhood, seeking to swell the ranks of their faith beyond the residents of the Drop. Simon even attempts to convert his brother Daniel to their cause. However, this only pushes him further away, resulting with the Wales brothers becoming estranged. Their followers are united under the promise of solidarity, of a so-called sacrament of cooperation. In stark contrast to Ryan's individualism, they promote a sense of brotherhood bordering on familial, which gives rise to their namesake, the Rapture family. The butterfly brooch, which previously acted as a symbol of their dedication, now becomes the official insignia to their faith. To Sophia, Rapture is a place of competition, of division, pitting brother against brother, and a house divided cannot stand. Sophia wants to usher in change, to make the commonwealth of the people the ideology which governs Rapture. Yet she's not foolish enough to proclaim these goals publicly. Sophia and the family are, if nothing else, discreet. The only thing outsiders know of them is their heraldry of altruism and their collectivist tactics, but that's enough to leave a lasting impression on people. For one, Fontaine takes notice. He attends one of Sophia's gatherings and is mesmerized by what he considers to be an incredible grift. And while he views the good doctor as competition, Fontaine ultimately leaves feeling inspired along with the crowd, only not in the same way. Sophia also catches the attention of Ryan, who unsurprisingly cares little for her altruistic rhetoric. Yet he's caught between a rock and a hard place. His stance on censorship prevents him from demanding silence on her part, but at the same time, he's seen what this kind of recalcitrance can cause. He's lived through it. Ryan ceases to see her as a minor nuisance, and more as a threat.
Lamb is becoming a problem. The woman is a damned collectivist. Here in Rapture. How could the council fail to see it? Worse, to hide her intent, she gulls these patients of hers into a religious frenzy. A new Kremlin will rise and swallow the council house before they realize they've been had. I will not have my city swindled by the parasite, whatever its guise. It is time, I think, to call Sinclair.
Sophia has become a problem. As a result, Ryan reaches out to Rapture's resident problem solver, Augustus Sinclair. Ryan hires Sinclair to find dirt on Sophia. To accomplish this, Sinclair reaches out to an asset under his employ, a weaselly little man named Stanley Poole.
I met with Sinclair today of Sinclair Solutions. It's this pseudo-legal firm he set up to take problems Ryan doesn't want to admit he has and make them go away. I could fill 40 front pages of the Tribune with stories about this fella if he wasn't paying me not to. And he's got work for me, right? I ask what? And he flashes me these $1,000 Steinman teeth saying this job will, quote, change history.
At some point in time, Poole gets mixed up with Sinclair, who begins paying him not to report his firm's dirty dealings. The journalist is tasked with infiltrating the Rapture family, His investigation starts with the man behind the lamb, Father Simon. Poole cozies up to him, curious to learn if the good father grew his beard for Jesus or Karl Marx.
Well, I'm in. Yep, yours truly is the newest member of the Rapture family. I fed Wales a line about how the Tribune was stopping me from telling the people what's what, and without a word, he hands me an invite to this artist retreat here at the park. Lamb bought my Frustrated Novelist Act. She's even sponsoring me to ink it while I'm here. Except my story's all about her. And I don't think she's gonna like the way it ends.
In order to get close to Sophia, Poole dupes Simon into thinking the Rapture Tribune is censoring his reporting. With Ryan being the majority shareholder on the paper, it doesn't take much to convince him. As such, Poole is welcomed into the fold, and Sophia herself offers to sponsor him while he takes the necessary time to pen his article. Of course, unbeknownst to her, it's not Ryan he has his sights on. The Rapture family exalts Sophia's word as gospel, treating her book, Unity and Metamorphosis, as a sacred text. Yet, despite her veneration, she struggles to inspire that same fervor outside of the drop. This leads her to challenging Ryan to a series of public debates. By this point in time, the magnate already has his hands full with Fontaine. Ryan is understandably reluctant to debate Sophia, fearful that providing her a venue might result with her ideologies metastasizing throughout Rapture. He is ultimately convinced into doing so by one of his friends, Bill McDonough, who also happens to hold a seat on the Rapture Council. According to McDonough, defeating Sophia in public debate would defang her. Unfortunately for them, she too possesses a silver tongue.
White is not black, Dr. Lamb. Down is not up, and straw is not gold. Look around you. Rapture is no miracle. It is a product of reason. Impossible unless 1 and 1 are 2, and A equates to A.
And yet, alone, each man is a prisoner to bias, dream, delusion, or the pain of a phantom limb. To one man, they are as real as rain. Reality is consensus, and the people are losing faith. Take a walk, Andrew. It is raining in Rapture, and you have simply chosen not to notice.
As it turns out, Sophia is as gifted an orator as Ryan is. However, she's also mastered the fine art of logoria. Her retorts, while wordy, make little sense when you attempt to parse them, though that matters little. Sophia's messaging is clear. Reality is consensus. The people are losing faith.
Do you remember what you told me, Bill? A marketplace of ideas. That was you. If I submit to the debates with Lamb, we defang her. I've done so. And have you been to Pauper's drop, Bill? Listen.
When you're down and out.
Between each song, these Oblomovs hand out her manifesto. Her face adorns every wall. Saint Lamb. You made her, McDonough. And now, you will convince the council to sponsor her silence.
Ryan, aggravated that he let McDonough convince him into debating her, holds him personally responsible for her ascension. Ryan pressures McDonough to convince the council to silence her. That same pressure is felt by Stanley Poole, whose investigation into Sophia is leaving him feeling more and more anxious by the day. Poole feels the hot breath of Ryan's men on his scrawny neck. While desperate to get the investigation over with, he's reluctant to dig too deep. Poole finds himself impeded by a most unlikely obstacle: little Eleanor. Bearing the cameo of her precocious youth, she gives Poole the impression that she may be on to him, that she sees him for the snake in the grass that he is. As a result, Poole's investigation proceeds at the speed of molasses, meaning Ryan is forced to stay his hand. However, a lack of evidence of Sophia's wrongdoings doesn't stop him from cracking down on her supporters. He orders the arrests of many dissidents, one of which turns out to be James, Grace Holloway's lover.
He's gone. James was the only man I ever loved, and now it's like he never even came to Rapture. He heard me sing at the limbo room, came up all bashful. He liked hearing songs about what it's really like to live in this town. I think he's been trying to organize folks against Ryan. And now he's gone, and I'm here, singing Rise, Rapture, Rise. Scared to death they're gonna come for me.
James's disappearance convinces Grace that Ryan is coming for her. To her dismay, she stops singing songs of protest in favor of pro-Rapture propaganda. Yet, despite her front, she maintains support for Sophia, seeking what little solace she can in her adopted family. Now, let's take this moment to discuss the state of Rapture. The conflict between Ryan and Fontaine is intensifying. Rampant plasmid abuse is mutating citizens into splicers, all the while Big Daddies and Little Sisters patrol the streets in search of Adam. It's not all-out war, but the city has fallen on some hard times. We haven't elaborated on any of these because we'll be discussing them in another episode. I bring them up now, however, because it's important to acknowledge their existence, since they will be playing a role in the fate of characters who are involved with Lamb. It should also be stated that while Rapture's isolationism has occluded it from the surface world, that doesn't mean the city hasn't had its share of close calls. Many ships and submarines have almost discovered Rapture, but Ryan has them shot down, leaving a path of destruction which doubles as a pretty good breadcrumb trail. Considering this, it should come of no surprise that Rapture is one day visited upon by a stranger. A deep-sea diver stumbles upon the city, eventually gaining access to it through one of its airlocks. Unsurprisingly, he becomes something of a celebrity amongst the citizens. He is, after all, their only bit of contact with the surface world since the vanishing. Amidst his investigation into Sophia, Stanley Poole manages to squeeze in an interview with the diver, who the public nicknames Johnny Topside. He learns that Topside is investigating the ships and subs that have disappeared in the area, not terribly far from a certain lighthouse. Poole also finds that Topside is reluctant to disclose information about himself. This causes him to grow suspicious, believing the mystery man to actually be a foreign spy. He brings his findings to Ryan, who in turn has Topside apprehended. As luck has it, Johnny Topside is not the only high-profile arrest that Poole is involved with, but we'll explore that shortly. For now, it's important to know that Topside is interned in Persephone, and dark times have fallen upon Persephone. Many inmates are moonlighting as test subjects for Adam research. Not by choice, Sinclair is leasing them out to Fontaine Futuristics against their will, and Topside, being in the wrong place at the wrong time, becomes a human guinea pig. Renamed Subject Delta, he is shipped off to Fontaine Futuristics, where he not only becomes a testbed for experimental plasmids, but is forced to showcase them in the plasmid theater for the amusement of onlookers. Life for Delta is cruel, undignified, and it only gets worse. As it turns out, Sinclair has his fingers in many pies. He doesn't just rent out inmates to Fontaine, but to Ryan as well. The magnate's protector program needs candidates, and so Sinclair obliges. Delta is one of the many inmates delivered to Ryan for the program. He undergoes intense physical and genetic modification to become a Big Daddy. Specifically, a member of the Alpha series, a line of prototypes created by Gilbert Alexander. More on this in a bit. Around the same time, Poole finally manages to unearth Sophia's intentions, which sounds the death knell for the good doctor.
Dr. Lamb's trying to take the city by sponsoring the artsy types here. Big thinkers, to speak out against Ryan in their work. And all of it is right here in the park galleries. Open to the public. Lamb ain't even charging for it. And then Rapture, that's just brazen. Like some kind of naturist camp where everybody wears pole hats and nothing else. It won't be long before Ryan's cronies can move in. And I can finally stop holding my breath.
Sophia plans on using Dionysus Park to convince the artists of Rapture to speak out against Ryan. Poole informs the magnate of her intentions, providing enough evidence for him to make his move. Ryan sends Sullivan and his men to apprehend her, and word of her impending arrest gets back to her. Sophia is forced to quickly find a guardian for Eleanor. She decides to leave her with the only person she can trust to take care of her.
I know it's wrong to feel so fine right now, but I can't seem to quit this grin. Dr. Lamb came to tell me that Ryan's finally gonna lock her up, Sophia remembered that I was barren, and she asked me to take care of her baby while she's gone. Baby Eleanor Lamb. Gorgeous, clever little girl. I have a child now, and it's gonna put the whole world all right.
Knowing of Grace's desire for a child, Sophia entrusts her with the responsibility of raising Eleanor. As one would expect, the 7-year-old doesn't quite know what to make of this arrangement, but she puts on a brave face.
Now, Eleanor, Mummy has to go away for a while. You shall be staying with Aunt Gracie.
Mummy, don't go.
Eleanor, you are better than that. Do you remember what I told you?
I am very special.
That's right. And what else?
I was born to change the world.
Yes. And when Mummy returns home, the world will be very different indeed. She will make it ready for you.
Circumstances aside, Grace is delighted, seeing this act of kindness as absolution for all the wrongs she's endured since coming to Rapture. Eleanor moves into her apartment, and the new mother showers her with warmth and affection. Unfortunately, Grace's newfound maternity will be short-lived. With Sophia out of the public spotlight, she begins to fade from memory, at least for the upper-class citizens of Rapture. However, the echoes of her empathy still remain within the drop. Meanwhile, the good doctor is sent to Persephone, where she is put to work as the prison therapist. Sinclair wants to use her psychiatric expertise to quell the unease and paranoia they may be feeling. Considering that many of their cellmates have disappeared under suspecting circumstances, I'd wager her services are desperately needed. Yet, despite his reasoning, it's obvious this is a bad idea. Sophia's rise to power started with her empathy. By allowing her to carry on her work, he is essentially giving the good doctor a loaded .45 and a license to kill. It should come of no surprise that she once again begins amassing a following, this one consisting of inmates and some prison staff, including its warden, Nigel Weir. Slowly but surely, the family is rebuilding. However, Sinclair thinks he can rein Sophia to compliancy by forcing her to make some sacrifices.
Things aren't so rosy for Lamb's little collective farm down here, no matter how much influence she's got with the inmates. She keeps feeding Ryan more and more of her people for the Big Daddy program in order to keep the rest of her flock alive. I think she's getting desperate. I ought to have Weir double the orderlies on all the major junctions.
Sinclair forces Sophia to select which inmates are contracted out for experimentation. While reluctant, she ultimately complies, coercing sacrifices from what we can assume are disposables, supporters who are non-essential to the success of her cause. She, of course, finds this abhorrent, but plays along, steeling herself with the promise that she had made to her followers long ago, the promise of revolution. While Sophia is plotting, her Judas is carousing. Following her incarceration, Poole is, for some reason, given charge over Dionysus Park, and uses his newfound privileges to host lavish parties on the good doctor's dime, eventually draining her bank account dry. Eleanor, who still spends time in her mother's refuge, takes notice of this, vowing to tell her mother the truth about Poole. Fearful of Sophia's retribution, he vows to do something unforgivable. And so, Grace's and Eleanor's play family comes to an end, when one day the little lamb vanishes.
Empty house, only an echo to my name. Eleanor, baby, where are you? I turned my back and someone took you. It happened so quick. I'm not even a half mama to you, girl. I couldn't protect you. This poster of Dr. Lamb in my room is staring me down like it knows I'm ashamed. I've always been loyal to your real mother, Eleanor. Always trusted her with my secrets. But I lost you. What will the doctor think of me now?
Eleanor, vanished in an instant, leaves a would-be mother grieving, guilt-ridden, and defeated. When Grace's back is turned, Poole abducts the girl and sells her to the little sister's orphanage in Simon Alley.
I'm all alone here, Mr. Diary. You're my whispering friend. A doctor keeps coming to see me. He says Rapture needs me, and tomorrow I'll be leaving with him. I ask why, and he just smiles. I'm not an orphan. Mom's alive somewhere, and Aunt Gracie is still probably looking for me. But I can't wait for them. I'm going to escape and find Amir, and we'll steal a submarine. Before it's tomorrow, I'll know what sunshine feels like.
Imprisoned in the orphanage, Eleanor knows she can't rely on her mother or Grace to rescue her. She is determined to escape on her own. Escape not just captivity, but rapture altogether, to one day feel the warm caress of the sunlight on her face. Sadly, her journey upwards is curtailed even before it begins. Eleanor undergoes the procedure that transforms her into a little sister. And it's Dr. Gilbert Alexander who oversees it. He, like Suchong before him, has been struggling to crack the code, the mystery behind pair bonding little sisters to big daddies. Even after incorporating Suchong's findings into his own research, all attempts have ended in failure. That is, until little Eleanor. After countless iterations to this procedure, Alexander finally manages to do what Suchong could not, to pair bond Eleanor to a big daddy. And not just any big daddy. Subject Delta, formerly Johnny Topside. The mental conditioning sees them attached at the hip as they are set loose on Rapture to do their foul work which, cruelly, crosses paths with another surrogate parent.
Dr. Lamb trusted me to care for her child, and I tried. But baby Eleanor disappeared. And then one day, I see her walking with you, looking wrong. And when I tried to hold her, you knocked me down, broke my jaw. So I'm ready, baby snatcher. Come on in and finish the job.
One day, while walking the streets of Rapture, Grace crosses paths with the newly paired Eleanor and Delta. In her shock, she attempts to hold Eleanor to bring her home. But Delta responds with a hand to her jaw, shattering it and what little hope she has left. In the end, Grace is left with a swollen face, a heavy heart, and some vitriol rightly fierce. She sees Delta as a baby snatcher, as the one who kidnapped little Eleanor Lamb. And this false notion will fester inside her for many long years, even after the brine has claimed most of the city, and when Delta comes plodding through the door to the drop one last time. After building up a large enough following, Sophia leads an uprising in Persephone. The inmates overwhelm their captors, helping her assume control of the facility. Sinclair is ousted in the process, leaving the remaining staff to fend for themselves.
Looks like Sinclair's been ousted. He wasn't slick enough to avoid the boot this time, but at least it wasn't a firing squad. Lamb proved she's got the ear of the general population down here, so it'd probably be prudent to play along for a while, see where this goes. She says she'll let me keep my little fiefdom here in holding, as long as I agree to help supply her therapy sessions. No qualms there. These sorry buggers could use some rehabilitation.
Nigel Weir, the warden, concedes authority over to Sophia. She continues her work with the other prisoners while also providing counsel to many of the staff, most notably Warden Weir, who've all become thralls to her teachings. Sophia remains within Persephone until news of her daughter's fate gets back to her. At the tail end of 1958, on the eve of the new year, Sophia leaves Persephone. She infiltrates the city, sneaking into the Adonis luxury resort where her daughter has been spotted. With the aid of some of her followers who have begun splicing, she manages to subdue Delta, using, quite appropriately, a hypnotized plasmid. Delta, now under her suggestion, is ordered to commit suicide, and Eleanor is forced to watch as her adopted father removes his helmet and offers a bullet to his temple.
5.
Ryan is notified of Sophia's actions, but luckily for her, the magnate has his hands full.
I'm told that Lamb has been seen in the streets. One of the Alpha series was killed in the incident, and his bonded sister stolen. But the Council has no time for a manhunt. Atlas swells the ranks of his marauders by the day. Regardless, Lamb's name has already faded among the people. She is no more than a ghost who has forgotten to die.
Sophia's moment of triumph coincides with the onset of the Rapture Civil War, which begins that very day as riots break out across the city. Amidst the chaos, Sophia retreats back to Persephone with her daughter, determined to wait out the bloodshed in relative safety. In the wake of Sophia's escape, Stanley Poole becomes terrified that the Rapture family might contact her, informing her of his misdeeds. He resolves to silence them all by exploiting a design flaw in Dionysus Park's pump lines. Doing so floods the whole park, drowning everyone who could have ratted him out. Stanley Poole's wrongdoings are buried along with them, or so he believes. Sophia spends the next few years bolstering the ranks of the family, which obviously saw a dip in membership following the deluge of Dionysus Park. She also tries to undo the mental conditioning on her daughter. Easier said than done, of course. She doesn't have the resources nor the expertise, and so Sophia is forced to enlist the very man who made Eleanor into the monster she is today.
The genius of Sophia Lamb is a thing of empathy, a profound moral sense. I can only describe her as a kind of secular saint, but dividing her loyalty evenly across the world at large spreads it so thin as to be invisible to some. Love, I have found, is beneath her. Naturally, Ryan arrested her, gave her to Sinclair to incarcerate somewhere, but upon her escape, she took the city and changed my life forever.
Alexander agrees to help rehabilitate Sophia's daughter, which begs the question, why would someone on Ryan's payroll agree to help her at all? Well, the simplest answer is that Alexander is guilt-ridden for the role he played in Eleanor's condition. However, it's slightly more complicated than that. As it turns out, Alexander thinks very highly of Sophia. Despite her cold demeanor, she possesses a profound empathy, and offers that empathy to everyone. Her motto is "Make the world your family," meaning force your mind into becoming loyal to the world in a way usually reserved for your child. As one can imagine, this is an intellectually daunting task, something even the most benevolent of us might find impossible. As such, Alexander's loyalty makes a great deal of sense. He feels indebted to Sophia. Together, they undo Eleanor's psychological conditioning. However, as it turns out, correcting everything else wrong with her is far more complicated.
This is Eleanor Lamb speaking. It's been many years since my last diary. Mother found a way to rehabilitate me psychologically, but she can't remove this thing inside my body. I look in the mirror, and I see a freak. I remember very little. Just an artificial sense of peace and a compulsive hunger for Adam. Dr. Alexander is trying to help me adjust. He's responsible for part of my condition, but he wants to make amends.
Despite her rehabilitation, the adolescent Eleanor remains plagued by memories of hunger for Adam. It doesn't stop there. She's also haunted by the memory of Delta, whom she still considers to be her father. And worse, Eleanor continues to harbor a parasite within her, which should be a cause for concern, except Sophia begins to see this as something of a blessing, and that point of view will one day blur the line between love for Eleanor and her heraldry of the greater good, perverting them both into something radical. But that's a story for another episode. In the end, whatever longevity Sophia's name enjoyed is washed away in a tide of salt and blood. The public has forgotten her, and Ryan has Atlas to contend with. Yet, the irony is, Atlas would not exist without Sophia, for it was her altruism that paved the way for his most insidious plan yet.
This lamb twist went after Ryan all cockeyed. Solidarity angle was smart at first. Poor houses and bread lines, high-grade bunco. And that religious rights debate? Gotta wonder if she staged it just to watch Ryan squirm up there in his monkey suit. Lamb's only problem is she really buys into the whole song and dance. Saving the world? Ha! Rapture just ain't her town. Ryan's got her on ice somewhere now, and I figured that opens up the charity scam for the professionals.
If there is one truth to take away from this, it's that an open hand is more powerful than a closed one. When the revolution begins, people will remember those who extended theirs in kindness and charity, even if it was done disingenuously. But those who denied it, well, let's just say the blood is in the water. And in the ocean, if there's blood, you best believe sharks are not far behind.